Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Can brothers please take your seats, please? Please. We want to begin the program with the recitation of the Qur'an. Today is young friend Muhammad Walji, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. واتل عليهم نبأ إبراهيم إذ قال لأبيه وقومه ما تعبدون قالوا نعبد أصناما فنظل لها عاكفين. قال هل يسمعونكم إذ تدعون أو ينفعونكم أو يضرون قالوا بل وجدنا آباءنا كذلك يفعلون. واتل عليهم نبأ إبراهيم إذ قال لأبيه وقومه ما تعبدون قال هل يسمعونكم إذ تدعون أو ينفعونكم أو يضرون قالوا بل وجدنا آباءنا كذلك يفعلون. قال أفرأيتم ما كنتم تعبدون أنتم وآباؤكم الأقدمون فإنهم عدو لي إلا رب العالمين. والذي أطمع أن يغفر لي خطيئتي يوم الدين. قال أفرأيتم ما كنتم تعبدون أنتم وآباؤكم الأقدمون فإنهم عدو لي والذي أطمع أن يغفر لي خطيئتي يوم الدين رب هب لي حكما وألحقني بالصالحين واجعلني لسان صدق في الآخرين واجعلني من ورثة جنة النعيم واغفر لأبي إنه كان من الضالين ولا تخزني يوم يبعثون يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Thank you very much, Muhammad. Now we invite Sheikh Zoheir Esmail to continue his talk on Mulla Sadra. This is the second one, and I hope he can finish in the 4 or 5 talks he has got, inshallah. Please.
Thank you. Thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين صلاة على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد. Alhamdulillah, I begin by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the success to gather again and to continue on with our topic. And I'd also like to thank many of you for the feedback that I've been getting, the constructive criticisms, corrections, and discussions all the way from the use of terms that I've used as I've been talking to the portrayal of certain ideas. Thank you all for all of that feedback. And inshallah, I'll take all of that on board, and anything that needs to be readjusted as we're going through, inshallah, I'll do that. Today we have a lot of things to talk about because we need to start to delve into Mulla Sadra himself, to try and understand what the soul is, try and understand how he conceives of the soul, and to try and start thinking about how that is important for our discussion on mental health. So the first thing we need to ask is, what is the soul? Because this is the key question. I think when we hear the word soul, sometimes we assume that we have the meaning of the soul. The soul is like Casper, this thing that floats out of you. But on the other hand, it's important for us to define terms clearly, because as far as we don't know what we're talking about, we are unable to build any kind of idea. So on this slide here, I've got a lot of information, but I'm going to go through it stage by stage. If you want a simple definition, what is the soul? The soul is everything other than our corporeal body. Okay, so we have a body which in itself is inanimate. As we know, when we die, our body doesn't work, right? Our hands don't move, our heart doesn't beat, we don't breathe, or anything like that. The soul basically affects our corporeal body, and it enables us to be animate, and it enables us to live. Now, some of those effects that we see on the body can be measured, and that is here where we have the role of science, because anything that we can measure, we can discuss in the realm of science. But the soul in itself, or the inner aspect of the human being which is beyond their body, the way it is conceived by Islamic philosophers is that it is a limitless ocean. Similar to how we understand our conscious and unconscious mind, or our subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind is vast. So the soul in itself is vast. And because it is vast, it is hard sometimes to pin down all aspects of the soul using the language that we have. The language that we have is developed for a function. It is developed so that we can interact effectively with the corporeal world. It's not really there for us to identify things in the metaphysical world. Yes, we put terms so that we can understand what we're talking about many times, but at the same time, that's not the primary function of the language we use. If I say I would like a cup of tea, I'm talking about physical things. If I give you directions to my house, I'm talking about physical things. That is the primary use of language. And as such, we do not have a full language for the metaphysical. And this is why also when it comes onto the Holy Qur'an and Quranic hermeneutics, one of the most important things to realize is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using the language of the corporeal world to explain things that are metaphysical. And that is why there has to be a relationship between that word and what meaning is being intended in the metaphysical. That itself, of course, is its own discussion in the kind of field of Quranic hermeneutics. But the inner aspect of the human being, we don't know its limits. For us, when we look at that inner aspect, it is limitless. And so when we come on to defining the soul, usually the definition that has been given all the way from the time of Aristotle is one that is used as a working definition when we come to the soul. And this is what it is in English. The soul is the first actuality of the natural body that has life potentiality. In Arabic, النفس كمال الأول للجسم الطبيعي آلي ذي الحيوة بالقوة. That's a little bit wordy, but all it means is that the soul is that thing which animates you. The soul is the first perfection that you have upon which all other perfections can be built. You need to have a soul in order to progress in any meaningful way. You need to have a soul in order to rectify that soul and take you towards a personality. Now, because we don't have words to define the soul, and because sometimes when we give philosophical definitions, they are hard to grasp entirely, usually what philosophers try to do is to move away from the realm of definition and try and use thought experiments. Thought experiments are important because they allow us to get an intuitive grasp of the concept at hand. So one of the famous thought experiments for the soul is the suspended man of Ibn Sina. So what he says is that imagine you are suspended in space, in a vacuum, and you have nothing to stimulate your physical senses. Okay, so you have nothing to see, you have nothing to hear, you have nothing to smell, you have nothing to touch. What do you know about yourself? What sense do you have about yourself? Now, usually people say, I'm hungry. But the other thing that might come to your mind is that you feel a sense of individuality. Yeah? That is what we're talking about when we talk about the soul. You feel something that is beyond your body. Because your body no longer is occupied with sense, you're now able to, if you like, feel the impact of your metaphysical self. Another example that they give sometimes about the identity of a person is to talk about cutting off limbs. So if a person was to cut off their hand, have they lost something from themselves? If they are to cut off their other hand, if they're to cut off their legs, and so on and so forth. And what you come to is that the human being is more than their body. They are something else as well. And that something else is, what we're talking about when we talk about the soul. So going beyond the verbal definition, it's important to reflect on ourselves to see what is here, what are we talking about when we talk about a soul. The soul is responsible for our actions. The physical body is controlled by the forces of the soul. And so therefore our body is a tool for the soul. Our body is that which the soul uses to develop itself. There is an interaction between the body and the soul, and that is a key. This is going to be a key aspect of Mulla Sadra's idea. So hopefully we have an idea of what the soul is according to the Islamic philosophers. And I think immediately we can already see how terms intersect. When I talk about mind, we never think of mind as something purely physical. There is an intersection here between the terms that are used in various sciences and what is talked about here in terms of the soul itself. So your soul is that which is other than your body. So, one second, I think I skipped a slide, yeah. So now let's start looking at some of the things that Mulla Sadra has to say about the soul. The first point over there expresses how Mulla Sadra doesn't see the soul as something separate from the way he sees the whole mode of existence and reality. The soul reflects that reality. He situates and applies the ideas that he has on the metaphysical world, so the ideas of what makes things real. What is reality and what does the fabric of reality look like? He uses that same discussion to talk about the soul because he believes that the soul mirrors reality itself. So for Mulla Sadra, for something to be real, the thing that makes something real is that it exists. Now many different ideas have been brought forward for what makes something real. Some people think nothing is real. Some people think what is real is what is in your mind. Yeah? Some people have thought what is real is light. And Mulla Sadra, when he talks about what reality is, he says it is existence. For something to be real, it has to exist. That is the central point of what makes something real. And this is known as the principality of existence. It is existence that makes things real. Then, when he looks at the fabric of reality, he sees reality as something that has levels. Some things are more real than other things, because some things experience reality at a higher level than other things. So when he looks at the system of the world, and when he also looks at how the different worlds interact with each other, because he also sees a graded system of existence. So he sees the corporeal world as one level. Beyond the corporeal world is the barzakh. The barzakh is at a higher level. It is more real because it is more existent. And then beyond that is the intellectual realm, which is the realm of the angels. And that realm is more real than the barzakh. It is more real than the corporeal realm. And then of course you have the realm of God, which is the realest realm. because the one who bestows reality on everything is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is essentially real. So in the same way, Mulla Sadra sees the soul as one integrated reality, which has a number of levels. And those levels then tell us about how each and every aspect of our existence is linked together. So in the second point that I've put there is when we talk about the levels of the soul independently. We might talk about body, we might talk about mind, we might talk about heart, we might talk about spirit, secret. These are all levels of the soul. As the soul becomes less tangible, so body is clear for us. Mind, we hear things in our mind all the time, we use our minds all the time. Our minds are interacting with the physical world. It is more clear for us, but slightly more elusive than the body. If I make an action with my body, it's clear for everybody. But if I have a thought in my mind, it's not clear to anybody. Sometimes it's not even clear to myself. And then the heart is even deeper. It goes beyond just those thoughts that are in the mind, and so on and so forth. We go through these, or we have all of these aspects within our existence. So that each and every level interacts with the other. This graded reality is such that each level of the soul is not separate. So something might come into the secret, which then flows into the spirit, which then flows into the heart, which then comes as a thought in the mind, and then manifests as an action in the outward world. So for Mulla Sadra, there is a link between all of these faculties, but there's something more important as well. I said at the beginning that the soul is everything other than the body. That was generally how the soul was seen. But for Mulla Sadra, the body is so linked to the soul that it's considered to be a level of the soul. Okay? The body interacts with the soul in such an intimate way that is considered to be a level of the soul. Meaning that all actions have an impact on the soul, and all things that are within the soul have an impact on our physical being. So for example, let's say we're in a good mood. Okay, mood is something to do with the soul. That good mood naturally affects our body. Yeah, and conversely, bad mood. When we're in a bad mood, our face looks different, our, if you like, movements are agitated, and so on and so forth. And conversely, the body affects the soul. So if you go to a place where everybody's happy, yeah, that situation is going to affect your mood. Or if you take care of your physical health, that will affect your mood, and so on and so forth. So the soul is spoken about in two ways. It is spoken about in terms of its connection to the body, and it's also spoken about in an essential way. The soul essentially is limitless, but the soul, as it pertains to the body, is so close in its interaction with the body that it is affected, and there is almost an interdependence between the body and the soul. In fact, the very existence of the body and the movements of the body prove the existence of a soul. Sometimes we might ask, how do we know we have a soul? Using the definition that has been used here, which is the inner aspect of a human being, our very presence in this gathering is an indication of the existence of a soul. We wouldn't have been able to come here if we didn't have a driving force that brought us here. So for Mulla Sadra, when it comes to the biological and the empirical treatment of the soul, it is always subservient to the metaphysical and spiritual aspects of the soul. Okay, so some important questions. If the soul and the body are so closely linked, then did the soul exist before the body? So if it does exist before the body, so if we say now the soul did exist before the body, but it's just connected in a very close way, then is the soul something that always existed, or is it something that is created in time? And then the other question is that if it is something that doesn't exist in time, it is something that has always been there, then does it become temporal or does it become limited by time when it connects to the body? For Mulla Sadra, he has a very important idea, which is that the soul is born with the body. Okay? As it pertains to the soul in this world, the soul is born at the same time as the body is born. And it moves through a number of stages. It starts off, if you like, as a very young soul. It is an inanimate soul. And then it moves on to having some additional capabilities, and it becomes a vegetative soul. So as the embryo develops in, during pregnancy, as the body gains additional powers to grow, to have a heartbeat, and so on and so forth, this is all because the soul at the same time is growing. Then as the baby gets the ability to move about, starts kicking, yeah, sometimes we think it's unintentional, but anyone that's been through it thinks it's kind of intentional. Yeah, the baby sometimes gets that volition to start moving with will, and even if it's not at the time where it's in the stomach, then definitely afterwards when the baby comes out, it gets that. And that is to do with the animal soul. The human being is a composite of these souls, not because it has all of these individual souls, but because all of those souls are a higher level of being and a higher level of existing. So as the human being goes through its development, it goes through levels of being more real. So as it gains the power to move, as it gains the power of imagination, and most importantly, what defines it as a human being is the intellect. Okay? So for Mulla Sadra, the soul comes about as the body comes about. But he also accepts some of the hadith that talk about how there is a kind of pre-existence for the soul. And he links that to the essential aspect of the soul as the timeless soul. So I know that's a little bit heavy, but hopefully that's given a clear idea of what Mulla Sadra thinks. There are other views as well, other views which I've put here according to Subzwari, talking about the different ideas of theologians. So probably the other view that is commonly heard is the theological view, which is, this is one theological view, but the other view, is the peripatetic view, is the one that we usually hold on to, which is that the soul pre-existed, it attached to a body, and then after the its movement in the world, it detaches from the body and goes back to how it was. Now there are some essential philosophical problems with this, which is how something that is abstract connects to something that is temporal, because that is a devolution rather than an evolution. It's a movement from action back to potential. So this is one of the reasons why Mulla Sadra didn't accept this view. I'm going to move quickly across the other views, because as long as I've got the, I think, Sadrian view, that is the key thing. There's of course, this is a long topic. When it comes to the soul in Islamic philosophy, there are volumes and volumes written on this issue. But I just want to go here and show you this aspect of the developmental stages. So Mulla Sadra says that while the embryo is growing in the womb, the soul is at the stage of the vegetative soul. Then gradation is achieved and it leaves that nature behind. Yeah, and the level of the solid faculties. So here is the inanimate faculties. It moves on to the vegetative state. When it's in the vegetative state, it has the potential to move into the animal soul, but its active state is the vegetative soul. Then it moves into the level of the animal soul, and it has a potential to become a human soul. Mulla Sadra believes that human beings are born in the state of the animal soul. So you might perhaps disagree with him there. There might be a little bit of nuance there. We don't have to always accept everything that Mulla Sadra says, but we have to see how useful his framework is. So each level contains all of the perfections of the previous level, and then add something as it develops. Okay. So now what we have spoken about in terms of the soul, I come back to this relationship that we spoke about yesterday. That whoever knows themselves knows their Lord. Last time we looked at it the other way around. Whoever forgets their Lord forgets themselves. For Mulla Sadra, what we've spoke about in terms of gradation of the soul and the very fabric of reality and how they are both linked is that for Mulla Sadra, the unity that is found in the soul is the secret of the unity that is found in the external realm. If we can understand how all of the aspects of our being are all different but at the same time part of the same being, we can understand multiplicity or difference in the real world and how it connects back to the unity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. While we see in the material realm everything being separate, there is something that connects everything, and that is that everything is real. Everything is real to a level, and that reality can only come from the source of reality. In the same way, the human soul is one soul. It is not something that is made of separate parts. Even when it comes to the body, the connection is so strong that it can be considered to be one. So it might seem that it is your hand that reaches out, or it is your eyes that see, but in truth, those are actions of your soul. In the same way, when we look at things that happen in the universe, it looks like those things are happening independently in the universe. But at the end of the day, nothing can occur without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the soul reflects this divine unity, and so whoever then is capable of understanding this interplay in the soul is then capable of understanding the unity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is a very important connection between the two. Now, of course, I have run out of time again. There's still a few more things I need to clarify before we move on to discussing this framework as it pertains to Karbala. But I think today we're going to have to stop here and continue, inshallah, from tomorrow. Thank you very much for your attention. I know it was a bit difficult at this time of day, but alhamdulillah, inshallah, I hope it's had some benefit. Salaat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
We have time for questions, if there are any questions from either side. Assalamu alaikum. Can I ask you, when you said about Mulla Sadra's definition of the soul being born contemporaneously with the body, and then that differs from our established peripatetic view. Our established peripatetic view, I suppose, has some correlation with the question, Alastu bi Rabbikum. And so that helps to solve that, our understanding of life, our understanding of death, and the events after death. So that fits in very well with that. So to accept this, how does Mulla Sadra answer that?
Thank you. That's a very good question. Thank you so much. The first thing is that when we look at our scriptural sources, they have a number of interpretations. So when we talk about Alastu bi Rabbikum happening in another realm, whether we consider that realm to be the Alam al-Dhar or any other realm, this is one view on that verse. As it pertains to the Alam al-Dhar is mainly taken from traditions, and there has been textual criticism on those traditions. Alternative interpretation for this verse is that it's specifically talking about Adam and his children, not, and the dhurriya here is talking about Adam's dhurriya that were present there. So for this specific verse, Mulla Sadra doesn't have to explain it. But Mulla Sadra does subscribe to the interpretation that you said, which is that there is something that happens before. And there are other hadith, like I said, there are some other hadith talking about a pre-existence of the soul. So the way Mulla Sadra solves this issue is to talk about that verse in a metaphorical way and say that there is an existence for the essence of the soul. but not the individuated soul as it pertains to this world. So because the soul has an essential aspect which is timeless, it can therefore correspond to a timeless realm. And timelessness is such that it's not limited by time. So we can't really understand timelessness because we have always been limited by time. When we think of timelessness, we just think it was there all the time, right? So this is how he kind of circles around this issue. But in a, if you like, from another scholarly perspective, he doesn't even have to circle around this ayah specifically because there are other interpretations there for it.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
So one of the points you made was about how our identity proves the existence of the soul, and for example, when you cut off a hand, that doesn't affect your identity. I guess contemporary materialist neuroscientists would say that if you do something to your brain, then that affects your personality, and that is obviously a very material part of our body. So how would the Islamic account for that?
Thank you very much. See, like I said, for Mulla Sadra, there is a very intimate connection between the body and soul. If you cut off a part of your body, let's say you cut off your hand, you cannot do any of the actions that the soul has the potential to do with the hand because you don't have the material hand. The same thing occurs with the brain. If you cut off the part that is to do with identity, then because you've cut off that physical part, the soul which has the potential for identity doesn't have anywhere to act on that, right? So if you like, the soul has the potential to do it, but because it doesn't have the means to do it, it is unable to do it. What these thought experiments are for, though, is to kind of indicate towards the fact that there is more to us than the physical. So I'm not aware of all of the aspects of neuroscience, but when it is defined like this, that it is to do with the metaphysical aspect of the human, or that which makes the human tick almost, yeah, there is a crossover between what is considered mind anyway, yeah. I don't know if there are any views to say that the body works, just by itself, right? It has to work with something. So what that something is then, Mulla Sadra is saying the soul. If you are going to be maybe a pure materialist, you might say, well, I don't accept that it's the soul, I think it's other things. And that's fine as well. You will not accept Mulla Sadra's framework because it's a different starting point. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for your talk. Yeah. You obviously mentioning about Mulla Sadra, but I obviously understand, I like to understand your own view as well. Is that presumably agrees with Mulla Sadra, that's why you're here explaining about that. Now you mentioned about soul takes birth. Does the soul die as well? Or does it just go into vegetative state? Because that was my question.
Thanks very much. I think I'd like to hold off committing 100%. What I find with Mulla Sadra is that I find his ideas coherent. And because I find his ideas coherent, I feel that he has the academic strength to help us as it pertains to problems of the age. So I think I have to look more into Mulla Sadra's psychological ideas to fully identify with them. But I definitely think that they're something that we can use. As it pertains to the soul after death, I didn't mention the other half of what Mulla Sadra thinks. So he thinks that the soul is born with the body. So it's in Arabic they say jismaniyatul huduth. It is corporeal in its beginning, yeah. But it's also ruhaniyatul baqa, which means that it's spiritual in its subsistence. So once the soul develops within the body, it then becomes timeless. It then becomes something that will live forever, and it outgrows the body, and then it goes into the realm that is suitable for it. So that's his view, that the soul doesn't come to an end or go into a vegetative state. It then takes on its own kind of journey after that.
So he doesn't go to somebody else's body. He just hangs
Yeah,
up.
so
Because the
this
body
is-
is actually...
yeah, thank you,
When
yeah.
the body is created, that's
Yeah.
when the soul is created.
Ahsant, yeah. So this is one of the main things that Mulla Sadra wanted to defend against. The idea of reincarnation, that a soul can move from one body to another. For him, the way he's framed this is that you can't have reincarnation. It's an individual soul. It grew with the body, and then it transcended the body and went into its own realm. For those people who have the first view, that the soul exists, then connects to a body, and then comes out, the simple question is, well, why can't it connect to another body after that? So this is one of the things that Mulla Sadra wanted to deal with. And then he fell into another issue, which is that, what about Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day of resurrection? How does that occur? He has his own ideas about how that happens. And that, of course, is its own topic.
Thank you very much. We'll finish the question.
There's a question at the back, but perhaps afterwards.
Yeah. If it's okay, can we have that question later?
Yeah. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Tonight is the night of Ali Akbar alayhi salam. Ali Akbar was the oldest son of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, and he displayed everything we would accept and everything we would expect from the eldest son of an infallible. He is so honored that when we send our salutations to Imam al-Hussein, Ali Akbar has a specific salutation dedicated to him. He was so similar to the Prophet in his features, mannerisms, and speech. It is said that this resemblance was so close that when someone wanted to remember the Prophet ﷺ, they would look at Ali Akbar. When you look at someone who resembles someone you love but have lost, your heart cannot help yearn for them. How beloved must have Ali Akbar been in the camp of the righteous, the people who loved the Prophet. Can we empathize with those feelings? How would we feel to have a personality like that around us? Can you put yourself in the shoes of someone that was in that camp, watching this amazing youth that encompassed so much? Would you not enjoy every second of his presence? He smiles the way the Prophet smiled. He laughs the way the Prophet laughed. He is kind the way the Prophet was kind. His presence is delightful in the way the Prophet's presence was delightful. Would you not want to lay down your life so that such a person could continue to bless this world? How many other people are like this? In a time where we have not sensed the presence of an infallible, we realize the value of this more. The world had lost the Prophet, but still had the breeze of his likeness. A youth with so much promise. I used to wonder why Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam didn't look more like the Prophet than Ali Akbar, until I came across a hadith explaining the features of Imam al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein in his facial features resembled his mother, Bibi Fatima alayha afdalus salati wassalam. There are a few moments concerning Ali Akbar are recorded in the books of history. His adhan when the army of Hur prayed behind Imam al-Hussein, and his taking charge of bringing water to the camp of Imam al-Hussein on the eve of Ashura. His being the first amongst the relatives of Imam al-Hussein to ask his permission to fight for him, to defend his oppressed father, to lead by example and be the first to face the enemy from amongst the family of the Prophet. What are the feelings in the heart of a son who has witnessed the oppression of people who are after his father's blood? And what are the feelings in the heart of a father as he watches such a precious son lay down his life for him. And to watch an enemy bent on hurting him through killing his son. What was it like for the Imam to witness in broad daylight the nightmare of any parent? There is no recovery after the death of Ali Akbar. Time cannot heal the loss of Ali Akbar. Life becomes wretched after the loss of such an irreplaceable youth. The account that I'm going to recite tonight is from Kitab al-Irshad. Shaykh al-Mufid says, the last companion of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam to remain at his side on the day of Ashura was Suwaid ibn Amr ibn Abi al-Mu'ta. And the first man to be killed from the family of Abu Talib on that day was Ali Akbar ibn al-Hussein ibn al-Ali. His mother was Layla. He attacked the enemy while reciting, I am Ali, the son of Hussein, the son of Ali. By the house of God, I swear, we have a greater claim to the Prophet. By God, the son of the illegitimate one shall not dominate over us. He did this several times. And then Murrah ibn Munqidh ibn Nu'man saw him and said, if he passes by me doing what he is doing, then I shall make his father weep over his death. Otherwise, let all the crimes of the Arabs be borne by me. Do you not see the intent of the enemy here? The intent is not to attack Ali Akbar. The intent is to make his father weep. The intent is to hurt Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Ali Akbar kept attacking the enemy with his sword. Murrah ibn Munqidh charged against him and struck him with a spear, causing him to fall to the ground. The enemy swarmed all over him, striking him repeatedly with their swords. Abu Mikhnaf reported, I heard with my own ears Al-Hussein saying, may God kill the people who killed you, my dear son. How audaciously they have defied the merciful Lord and violated the sacred trust of the Messenger of Allah. After you, the world is nothing but ashes. Ala dunya ba'daka al-afa. Then I remember seeing a woman rushing out, coming forth like the rising sun. She was calling out, oh my brother, oh my nephew. Do you see how Zainab looks at the heart of her brother Al-Hussein? And she consoles him first, oh my brother, oh my nephew. I asked someone about her and was told, this is Zainab bint al-Fatima, the daughter of the Messenger of God. She came forward and threw herself on the lifeless body. Al-Hussein came to her, took her hand and returned her to the tents. Then Al-Hussein returned to the body of his son accompanied with some youth. He said to them, carry your brother. They carried him away from the battlefield and placed him in the tent in front of which the battle was taking place. Ala la'natullahi ala al-qawmi al-dhalimin wa saya'lamu alladhina dhalamu ayya munqalabin yanqalibun. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. صلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
Salaat. Thank you. عیسیٰ لوٹا پھر نہ بسا زہرا کا گر ہائے کربلا عیسیٰ لوٹا پھر نہ بسا زہرا کا گر ہائے کربلا زلزلے میں ہو کیوں نہ نئی نوا زلزلے میں ہو کیوں نہ نئی نوا کیوں نہ پھر ہلے دشت کربلا آئے فوج کی چین لی ردا زہرا کا گر ہائے کربلا عیسیٰ لوٹا پھر نہ بسا زہرا کا گر ہائے کربلا دم گھٹا ہوا دل روندا ہوا دم گھٹا ہوا دل روندا ہوا گر لٹا ہوا سر کھلا ہوا چہر پہ ملے خاک کربلا زہرا کا گر ہائے کربلا دیکھ کر جسے مہر تک چھپے دیکھ کر جسے مہر تک چھپے بے رضا کرے ای فلک اسے روح مصطفیٰ جان مرتضیٰ زہرا کا گر ہائے کربلا عیسیٰ لوٹا پھر نہ بسا زہرا کا گر ہائے کربلا گل ہے خیمہ میں شور شین سے گل ہے خیمہ میں شور شین سے نکلی بی بیا آئی خیمہ سے شوہ مچا و مصیبت زہرا کا گر ہائے کربلا عیسیٰ لوٹا پھر نہ بسا زہرا کا گر ہائے کربلا صلوات
Just before prayers, we have a couple of announcements. We are trying to please ask for donations towards the Muharram funds. We can only continue with our programs with the generosity of our community, and the approximate program cost of Muharram is £7,500. Please do contribute to this. You can use the pay machines on either side for card donations, or donate online at sikkim.org.uk/give. Our Ashura program will be on Friday starting at 9:30 a.m. with Amal, and we'll finish at just after 12:40. Please do join us. And obviously outside our Muharram program, we have plenty of programs, including our weekly Friday lectures, monthly children's classes, and games, women's exercise classes, women's yoga, and many other activities. Please find out more from our website on sikkim.org.uk, or if you'd like to join our WhatsApp group for the events, please ask a member of the executive committee. Salawat ala Muhammad wa al Muhammad.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله وسلم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر الله أكبر